Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Golden Astrologer Podcast. This is Deb McBride, and I am here in lovely Escazú, Costa Rica, where I am recording this podcast on the 24th of March in the year 2024. And we are here now hours away from an eclipse. The eclipse will occur at 3 a.m. Eastern Time, 1 a.m. my time, midnight if you're in the Pacific time zone. And if you are in Europe or Australia, it's going to happen later. Well, it'll already be Monday for you, and you'll be experiencing this throughout your day as opposed to the middle of the night like us in this region of the world. So this is a lunar eclipse. It is not a total eclipse. It's a full moon, and this is what eclipses do. I've been talking about eclipses for a long time. I talk about eclipses every eclipse season. I talked about them on Instagram. I did a masterclass on eclipses a few months ago. You can still get it at my website, thegoldenastrologer.com, book online. And eclipses are when the sun and the moon are, astrologically speaking, they are connected. Well, they line up with the Earth, but they are connected to the nodes, the North Node and the South Node. And every month we have a new moon and we have a full moon. But we know eclipses are coming when we see that the sun and the moon are lining up with those nodes. And the nodes are a point in space. So you know your nodes. If you know your astrology, you know where your North Node is, your South Node. You know what nodes feel like. But those are very sensitive points in the astrological chart. And they are very much where our relationship fault lines are, because it's an opposition. They are very much where we feel like we can't release ourselves from those South Node habits, that old habits die hard. They are very sensitive points in the astrological chart for everyone. And the nodes right now, the North Node's in Aries, the South Node is in Libra. The South Node in Libra is where the eclipse is happening. It's a little bit distant from the South Node because the lunar eclipse, which is the sun and the moon in a full moon. The North Node, Aries, is where the sun is right now because we know we're in Aries season, right? And then the full moon, the moon, is going to be sitting close to the South Node, not at the South Node. And so that South Node eclipse is where we release. So eclipses in Libra often mean we're, trying to be polite. We're trying to be diplomatic. Sometimes those things have to be released. Sometimes we have to just let them go. This is a releasing sort of eclipse. Your relationships during this time, and this does not need to be your personal intimate relationship. Your relationships can bring a little bit of that South Node eclipse feeling to them. And certainly you may feel the disappointments that surface right now in your relationships. That doesn't mean the person should leave your life. That means that they said or did something that really reflects a deeper part of you. So you've got to look at you relative to whatever feels disappointing or untenable or uncomfortable or angering, wherever that goes. And you need to look at whatever it is that you are seeking to gain from them. So here's the crux of this. The South Node is where we want to be gratified, not fulfilled. Fulfillment comes with the North Node. So gratification, and sometimes instant gratification, comes from wherever the South Node is. Right now, it happens to be in Libra. 2 years ago, it was in a different place. 2 years from now, it'll be in a different place. A year from now, I think it's going to be in a different place. So right now, we're focusing on eclipses in Aries and Libra. And the South Node in Libra is about the gratification we're seeking in our relationships, whether that means it's personal one-to-one intimate, or your best friend, or your next door neighbor, or your experience of a colleague at work, maybe one of your kids, something that is a dynamic between you and someone else. Now, I wrote a blog the other day about this, and if you want to, if you're on my mailing list, you received it. But I wrote about the eclipses. So the experience of the eclipses really depends on what kind of emotional state we find ourselves, in order to experience them. Ideally, you want to remain detached and kind of cool. It's easy for me to say, I'm an Aquarius, right? Those are the words we use to describe Aquarius: cool and detached. We do have our hot-headed moments. You want to not put so much on other people, because they're going to disappoint you right now. Not everybody, but somehow I'm finding that if you're looking towards someone for some sort of gratification or some sort of connection, it may elude you during this time. And you have to look at why you want that gratification. Tricky, right? You got to own some stuff here. And the reason we get hot under the collar during eclipses is because our most vulnerable and sensitive points, like the nodes, are being touched. And they're heated up. They're definitely hot. And when we go into eclipse season, we want to be sure that we are not shooting anger, frustration, emotions at somebody else. Whether it's your cat, whether it's your dog, whether it's your kids, whether it's your business partner, your life partner, your parents, whoever they may be, we have to be adults, gain control, own our stuff, and not want to shoot off at the mouth, and really make a connection as to why people are letting us down, disappointing us, being difficult with us, being complicated, because eclipses are complicated, okay? So what is your expectation of somebody else? Where do you want to receive something from someone else? Right now, it's like you think it's the other person, it's really you. And there's dynamics, of course, there's dynamics. Oppositions bring dynamics. Eclipses bring dynamics. Everything is a dynamic. If we sit alone in our house and we don't interact with anybody, then who do we have? It's ourselves, right? So you could still get hot under the collar with yourself. Why did I do that? I'm such an idiot. So the expectation we have of other people could be disappointing right now. And the expectation, whether high or low or whatever, is, something that we have to examine during this time. So what was your expectation that disappointed you? How did somebody disappoint you over these next days? It occurs, the eclipse, and then for a few days, we still feel it. You may go, hey, I made it through the eclipse when you get up tomorrow morning in this region of the world, right? Maybe not. Maybe later in the day, it's a problem. Maybe Tuesday, it's a problem. Maybe Wednesday, it's a problem. Maybe it all comes to a head during the second eclipse, which is not till April 8th. But tomorrow morning, in this region of the world, we're having an eclipse. And they are something that I think can be very sensitive and vulnerable and maybe a bit of an ouch. So if you are disappointed by people, think about your expectations of them and your expectations of you and how it comes back to you. And, you're looking at a person, you're like, why are they like this? Why did they say that? What is that? And so we're all different, right? So my brain doesn't work like your brain, and your brain doesn't work like your next door neighbor's brain or your kid's brain or your parent's brain or whatever. It doesn't function the same way. People don't understand each other. This is like the fundamentals of like having to communicate very well. And so it's got to be something where the two of you in the dynamic that you're in, whoever it is that you're in the dynamic with, everybody wants peace, right? With the moon in Libra, everybody wants peace. And when you're trying to function through these dynamics, the best source of that is communication. And sometimes it's best to shut up, to just not say anything. The last few days I just felt like I think I need to stay by myself for a bit. I think I need to feel less triggered by the world and the people in it and dialogues and conversations, and just, go grocery shopping. Yesterday I went to the feria. Then I went to the grocery store later in the day with my neighbor. And then today I made ossobuco, which is now in my slow cooker, which I'm going to have after I finish this podcast. And so all this nice stuff, right? But I can tell you, I've had to do some work on myself because of the discomforts of the eclipse that are arriving in my field. So this morning we had a pre-Easter celebration because this is a big holiday. This week starts a holiday in Costa Rica called Semana Santa. It is Holy Week before Easter, and this is a very Catholic country. And so, stores are going to close. They might be closed for the whole week. They may be closed as Wednesday, maybe their last day of work, and then they're not going to be functioning Thursday and Friday up until next Monday. So this is a very big time for people to leave and go to the beach and all that stuff. So this morning we had an Easter celebration with the kids in the garden, and people came over with their kids, and we were all in the garden together, and we had a little brunch, and it was very nice because my friends won't be here next Sunday when it's really Easter. So, but we'll do something else for Easter next week with the rest of us who are here. And the experience of people today, it was very pleasant for me. It was very lovely. I had a really lovely time with them, and it was really good. And we talked about things like the whole behavioral experience of leaf ants. And I talked about the eclipse a bit and stuff. But our experience of each other was we had a very lovely visit, and the kids got to hunt for chocolate and all sorts of stuff. And it's been very hot here, so I'm glad they did that before it got into the hot part of the afternoon, because the chocolate would have melted somewhere in the sun under the tree. Anyway, so I had a very nice experience. However, that did not mean that I did not still have emotions and feelings and stuff that I did not project onto them, because I had a very nice time with them that I was receiving from other dialogues in my head and conversations I had in the past 7 days and things like that. So what I did for me, now I think everybody has to do something for themselves. We have to do something. We can't just sit by, and you can sit and be present with the emotions of the eclipse. That is one way of handling this. Go sit in your garden, go sit in your car, go sit in your bathtub, go to your swimming pool, go walk alone and just process and allow these things to move through you. However, there are tools to help everyone through eclipses. Meditation's one of them. Reiki's another one. I do Reiki. But for me, I used my New Vision holographic scaling system, and I scanned my quantum field with my system, and I asked my system what remedies were appropriate for right now. And I listed all the things I was feeling, and I asked a bunch of questions of my system. And I came up with like 28 remedies. So I slammed myself with, informational medicine. And I slammed myself with remedies that connected to my field. So I could reconnect them to my field. That's how my system works. So I did that, and thereby shifted and changed a lot of the emotions. I did it to my field. I also can program a bottle of water. So I did that. And I actually feel a whole lot better. So I used my tools. I feel a whole lot better. And it just lifted a lot of the yucky things. I've had wacky dreams. The last night I had a dream. The night before I had a dream. They were so intense. Oh my God. And they were all death and rebirth and more rebirth and death and nature and all sorts of stuff. But I did a whole lot of clearing right now and put these remedies for myself, programmed my water, and gosh, I feel better. And that's something I do for people too. That's also on my website. So it made such the difference, and I'm very grateful for my tools. But I think that we all have to go into our toolkit right now and get connected to something that's going to help us. Maybe you are really good at meditation. Maybe you love breath work. Maybe you are someone that really is deeply in a therapeutic process. But this is a time for things are going to come to the surface right now. Things are so deep in your subconscious, and the moon There's always that subconscious. It always brings out the goop of the subconscious when it connects with the South Node. And it really will connect us to what's going on. Pay attention to your dreams. Pay attention to your dreams. We're in Aries season, but there's a whole lot of Pisces still going on out there. We've got Mars and Pisces now, which we went the other day. I talked about that. We have, this experience of so much Piscean energy with Neptune still there for a long time, and Venus and Saturn. So we got 4 planets in Pisces, like I mentioned last week: Mars, Saturn, Venus, Neptune. And there's lots of subconscious stuff bubbling to the surface, and we're really moving through a lot of, information in our field. And, when I say I scanned my field, I'm scanning my emotions, my physical body, my everything in my system, my new vision system. And I'm seeing what's coming up and what is very present for me to look at. And where I've been triggered and where I've been emotional and where I've been, I have to contend with what is surfacing. And this is what happens in eclipses. As I've said before, eclipses bring emotions to the table. And we bring the emotions of our past and our wishes and our expectations of others into the eclipse season. And we need to spend a lot of time with ourselves and connecting with what we want, we desire, not from others, but from us. And this is really forcing us back on ourselves and to pay attention to our own drives, unconscious, conscious, all of that. Because we are not going to get satisfied by our dynamics with others. If we have a high expectation of someone, or if you're looking forward to something and then it like goes, wah, then that's part of the eclipse too, Look to yourself. Heal yourself. Work with self. This is Aries. The sun is Aries. The North Node is Aries. And I can tell you that if this eclipse brings unsavory dynamics with others, it's coming from you. And you are going to get a clearer picture of this, and it's going to be a better experience when we have the eclipse on April 8th that is solely in Aries, because the sun and the moon will be in Aries. That feels like a more clear eclipse to me. Aries doesn't mess around. They don't want to waste time. They just want to get clear, right? They don't want all this heavy energy hanging. And by that time, Venus will be in Aries, and that'll be very nice. Even though Venus does not love Aries, she likes Pisces more than Aries, but it's a more positive spin on the eclipse. And the other thing that's been happening, remember the other day we were having Venus and Saturn conjunct, and that's still kind of present. They are separated. Venus has moved on. But the hangover of Venus-Saturn feeds into this eclipse. Venus rules Libra, right? And if Venus is connecting with Saturn, then it's like, meh, well, what do you mean? Well, why aren't you as happy about this as I am? I thought you loved me. There's a lot of I thought you loved me. What about you love you? That has to come first. So, work with this energy. When you're disappointed by somebody else, go back to yourself and ask yourself what kind of expectations you had of the situation, the relationship, the dynamic, the conversation. Where were you vulnerable? Where were you like a friendly puppy that went in and like, yeah, let's play. And then you kind of got slapped around. It doesn't mean that everybody is going to do this to you. Like I said, I had a very positive, lovely experience with everyone here in my garden this morning, and everybody, the main garden. And except for the cats, of course, because Camaro always has to start a fight with the other cats because he's an alpha male. But that being said, it's the cats feel eclipses too. Your animals feel these things. Our animals feel them, and they need support and love just as much. And they may be disappointed in you, and you're like, but I love you and I give you everything. What are you disappointed for? It doesn't matter. This eclipse is setting up a disappointment vibe. Okay? So Be very, very cautious in navigating your relationships with others these next days. Just when you think it's safe to come out of your shell, you might get slapped. You might say something and somebody says something back and it's like, wow, where did that come from? They're feeling it. It's an eclipse for other people too, you know? And if your Libra friends are not themselves, let them be, okay? Because they're really feeling this quite complicated thing, okay? So this is really something where Libra, Aries, Capricorn, Cancer get the brunt of it. So if you've got planets in those places, it's going to be likely that you feel this more strongly than maybe your Leo, Aquarius counterparts, you know, the people in your life. Oh, what eclipse? Now, I'm feeling this very strongly, and this is making a very nice aspect to my chart, but I'm still feeling this very strongly. So, you know, I believe that we're all going to feel it on some level. It's happening for all of us, so we have to just contend with our feelings, our emotions, and our dynamics with others. Other things are going on this week. There are other planets. There are other aspects. Right now, and I spoke of this a bit last week, Venus in Pisces is making a very lovely aspect to Jupiter in Taurus, and that's today, and that's a very sweet thing. Those are the two benefics. And Venus is in Pisces, where she's exalted. Jupiter is in Taurus, which is Venus's rulership, and actually Pisces was where Jupiter ruled and is a co-ruler before they discovered Neptune. So Jupiter in Pisces would have been good, just as Venus in Taurus would have been good. They're in each other's homes. Venus is in Pisces, Jupiter's in Taurus. They're sort of connected in that way. Hopefully this smooths over your eclipse experience. It's about relationships as well, because Venus is about relationships, and Jupiter is a very social planet as well. So just appreciate and have gratitude for what you have in your life. This is a very gratitude-oriented aspect, Venus and Jupiter. So it's lovely. And so this is something that can be very positive and expansive. The moon's going to be in Libra until Wednesday, when it goes into Scorpio at 5:03 a.m. Eastern Time. It will have gone void the night before, 7:09 p.m. on Tuesday. So that's pretty much later in the day when we're not focusing on getting things accomplished and achieved. It'll go into Scorpio and then stay in Scorpio for a few days and then go into Sagittarius on Friday, which is Good Friday. If you believe in such things, it's Good Friday before Easter. The moon enters Sagittarius 3:52 p.m. Eastern Time. Otherwise, it's a relatively quiet week. We have some nice Venus talking to Uranus as well on Thursday the 28th. And when we have Venus and Uranus together, and Uranus is in Taurus and Venus is in Pisces, now this is a different dynamic than the Venus-Jupiter, because Uranus is more excitable. Uranus is an outer planet, and Uranus does not rule Pisces like Jupiter does, co-ruler. Venus still rules Taurus. So this is a sextile. This is a very nice, smooth, lovely relationship between Venus and Uranus, and they are compatible in this realm because they're talking sweetly to one another. Look for creativity, innovation and creativity, bright ideas, fresh off the conveyor belt, things that are new and different, and challenge us a little bit to get our creative juices rolling and come up with something sparkling and new. It's a nice time to be sparkly with your friends. It's a good social thing. If you live in Costa Rica, that's like, yeah, vacation, yeah. And so people are like going to the beach and everything. And this is something that's very sparkly for people here in this country because they're going to have a nice vacation. And it's a good week for a vacation because Mercury, planet of communication, is slowing down. Yes, that's right. You remember that Mercury is going retrograde April 1st, which is a week from tomorrow. And that means that this week ahead is going to be slow communications, not a lot of effort, things moving in a very pokey manner because Mercury is going, it's going to retrograde at 27 degrees Aries. But right now it's at like 22. So that's only 5 degrees, and it's just going to go 22, 23, 24, just move very slowly this week. And so if you start to know, because we are in that shadow, folks, we're in the shadow. We're in the shadow of Mercury retrograde, and it's going to feel like things are not so speedy, because even though Mercury's in Aries, it's just starting to get into that place of, I'm going to turn around and we're going to go internal right now. So that means that the next eclipse is going to be during the Mercury retrograde. And this is all sorts of dynamics of misunderstandings. And so Mercury will be in Aries. Mercury's going to be very close to that second eclipse. We'll talk more about that as we get closer to it. But as we are in that space and that time, it's going to be a little complicated, because in that eclipse chart, there are some things that I'm wary of, such as there's a Saturn-Mars conjunction, which is always a little tense. And Mercury will be retrograde in Aries, and it's going to be conjunct that North Node, Chiron, Sun, Moon stuff. It's a little wide, but it's still very present. And Mercury is often present during these eclipses, and many times Mercury's retrograde. So I expect that there may be some miscommunications. There's some kerfuffle around dialogue with people and all. So again, just, the more awareness you have, the less likely you're going to have a problem. And just listen to your intuition. Mercury retrograde always brings something that goes upside down or backwards. And just feel into something before you act with Mercury retrograde coming and the eclipse is coming, and before you say something that you will regret. Please be careful of that, because that Mercury is really tied up in that second eclipse. And this is, the moon, once it finishes, this is going to be at 19 Aries, and once the moon finishes, it bumps right into Mercury at 24 degrees Aries. So, the moon's going to be like, yeah, see you later, sun, and then turn around and Mercury's there, retrograde. So just be aware. The other thing I want to bring up, and it's not happening quite yet, but we have this Jupiter-Uranus that's coming down the road. And Jupiter and Uranus are going to conjunct in April. Later in April, we've got like almost a month before that happens. But I really want to make you aware of this, because they are going to conjunct in Taurus. And I talked all about this in my Year Ahead Vision of 2024, Vision of the Future 2024 masterclass that I gave in December. That is also still available on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com. And you can go to book online and you can find that masterclass there. And it is going to describe, going through every house, what Jupiter and Uranus are going to feel like. So if you have them going through your 5th house, your 6th house, your 7th house, etc., they are in Taurus. And, one of the things about Venus, remember I said Venus and Jupiter were talking very sweetly to each other today, and then Venus is going to talk very sweetly to Uranus on Thursday with the same aspect. This is because Jupiter and Uranus right now are only 5 degrees away, and I think it's actually more like tomorrow it's going to be 4 degrees away. So that's a conjunction. You know what I always say. You have a baby and they're born with this aspect. Oh, I look at their chart and I say, oh, they have Jupiter and Uranus conjunct, even though they're like 4.5 degrees apart right now. So I would say this is something you need to be aware of. We're going to talk about this going forward, but it is a powerful, powerful, powerful aspect. And if you are a Taurus, you are going to feel this, and you probably already are, as we all are feeling this on some level. The eclipse is kind of masking it a bit. I think that the unsavory emotions about people and disappointments and stuff are really getting in the way of us understanding the impact of Jupiter and Uranus. So we got to do one step at a time here. And that's why it's important to get through the eclipses, but be aware that Jupiter and Uranus are ready to make something very sparkly happen in your life, in the house where Taurus resides in your chart. So Taurus is all about security and money and finances and the things we do to make money and how we use our money, and also, nature and gardens. And it's probably why I had dreams about nature last night, and gardens, and the feeling of being in nature, being grounded, standing on the ground barefoot, being present with nature. So Jupiter and Uranus arrive someplace in your chart, in my chart, and they are together making something incredible happen. This is like fireworks, okay? Because Uranus is always like fireworks, right? It's a bit of the unexpected, but Jupiter is always like this big expansion. So wherever there may be fireworks happening in your chart, Jupiter's coming and making bigger fireworks, okay? So you want to pay attention to this too. And notice where things that are happening can get very positive and maybe a little explosive, but fireworks are explosive, but just, this is very hot energy, and it can be a little bit too expansive, like too much is happening right now, so much is happening I can't keep up with it. And so just take one step at a time, because that's what Taurus always wants us to do. Taurus is always very practical. So it may be a very practical matter that gets a boost from Jupiter and Uranus in your life. If you have a lot of Taurus in your chart, you may feel uplifted in a little bit of a way that Taurus is not normally uplifted. They're very much of the earth, and they look at things very matter-of-factly and very grounded. But Jupiter and Uranus are going to elevate this in a very active, unexpected way, because that's the nature. Whatever Jupiter touches, it expands. And when it touches the planet of explosions and the unexpected, well, maybe something big and unexpected will come. So this is something that you want to be aware of, okay? Now, I am available to talk about all these things, eclipses, Mercury retrograde, Jupiter-Uranus, because Jupiter-Uranus only happens once every 14 years or so. So the last time this happened was 2010 and maybe a little bit of 2011. It was between the end of Pisces and the beginning of Aries, and they came together back and forth quite a bit then, from 29 Pisces to 0 Aries, back and forth they were, and I remember that. And that was a real time of surrender, and that's the nature. Remember, I talked about surrender last week and surrender the other day on my Instagram. So let's see what happens. I am available to talk about these things. Connect with me on my website, thegoldenastrologer.com. You can click book online and get an appointment with me, set it up for yourself, and we can work through these things together, and I can tell you what to expect and what to look for and how to use this energy. I mean, we want to use this energy. And I really recommend my masterclass about the vision of the future, because it talks about Pluto in Aquarius this year, and also talks very much about the Jupiter-Uranus. They were the highlights of that masterclass. And, I did go around the zodiac and discuss where it happens for each person based on the house. And you should listen to something like that so that you can get a handle on how this is going to affect your life and where you can use this energy. Get a head start on it. Thank you for listening. I wish all of you a beautiful eclipse. Go see the moon. I'm going to go look for the moon and see how it is present in the sky, and if it has a message for you. Pay attention to this eclipse energy. Pay attention to yourself. Do some Aries things. Go exercise. Go walking, go use things that, go bicycling, use things that make your blood move. Normally I'd say initiate something, but most of Aries this season isn't great for initiating because of the eclipses and because of Mercury retrograde. So do some Aries things, like don't start a fight, maybe go to the gym, right? Do those kinds of things. Do something that gets your blood moving, and I wish you a beautiful week. And if you are celebrating Easter, which means probably I'm going to say I might not do the podcast on Sunday. I may do it Saturday because it's Easter and we'll be doing other things. But in any event, I thank you for listening. Gratitude to everyone. Have a beautiful week, and I'll see you on the other side of this first eclipse.